All right. So I still don't have the workout video stuff going yet. I got the camera situation figured out. Now I'm just trying to choreograph times with friends and or family to try and get some filming done. More than just asking a buddy to film a quick set or something like that while he's working out. I run into him in the gym. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm gonna try and keep posting some things. I actually think for the next post I'm going to go into a little bit how I like to go about, the basics of how I like to go about formulating workout programs. But today I wanted to talk about something that actually a buddy of mine and I have been talking about a little bit recently. Um, he has a coworker that is a huge fan and believer of basically everything on the site called nattiernot.com. Which for those of you who are not familiar with it, don't waste your time. For those of you who are familiar with it, please take it as a entertainment only website. I mean, most of what's on there is just pretty ridiculous. I'm not really going to get into it too much, but it's gosh, if you really buy into everything that's on there, I feel like it's going to discourage you from ever attempting to really train and see what your body's capable of. But anyway, that being said, we've just been talking a little bit about kind of what we feel are the standards, and talking about different guys who may or may not be natural. And there are definitely some things, I think, when you're around it long enough, and I've talked to a lot of judges too, and they kind of agree there's certain development in your physique that is mostly only attainable by guys who are taking some sort of anabolics. But with that exception, in terms of like a general, being a little bit bigger than the guy next to you, or getting super shredded, stuff like that, like there's a lot more that's attainable naturally than I think most people like to give credit to. And so the general, my feeling on it, and kind of general consensus of my friends and I, has been, you look at all these top level natural pros that people want to bash, and I mean, I don't want to say bash like as if there's anything wrong with taking steroids, but if you're competing in a natural federation, then yeah, absolutely there is, because it's against the rules of that federation. Um, so for anyone out there who is who does take steroids, like, nothing against you. I have plenty of friends who do. I don't see an issue with it. As long as you're not trying to compete in a federation that tells you that that's against the rules, then who the heck cares? However, I will say, if you're, I mean, like anything, if you're trying to basically cheat, doing something that's against the rules of said federation, then yeah, then there's a problem with it. Anyway, my thing is, you look at the guys who are these top level natural pros, and you compare them to the top level pros in the IFBB, and as awesome as they all look, and even as much as it might look like they wouldn't get embarrassed too bad when you compare the pictures next to each other, if you actually put them on stage next to each other in real life, I think we can all agree, including these top level natural pros, no disrespect to any of them, that they would be embarrassed and they would look like little children next to these guys. And it just is what it is. You can't, uh, you know, without steroids, no matter how hard you work, you can't be competitive with somebody. I'm fumbling here. You can't be competitive with somebody who's taking steroids, who's working just as hard. I mean, that's kind of what steroids do. So anyway, when you look at these guys and you recognize, like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and use the last guy that I knew of to win the Natural Mr. Olympia, Kiyoshi Moody, and the last guy to win the IFBB Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath. You put them next to each other, they're similar height, and Phil Heath has about probably 50 to 60 pounds on him for competition day. So not even like competition weight on those days, about 50 to 60 pounds on him. And Kiyoshi Moody's been doing it longer. So, I mean, I don't know, how would you even argue that he was taking drugs? And so if you can accept that Kiyoshi Moody's probably natural, then I feel like you got to accept that anybody that he's beating is probably natural. So at which point since he is one of the best natural bodybuilders, probably of all time, you got to assume that most of these guys in the natural divisions, like most of the high achieving guys, are probably, or if they want to say they are, there's really no reason to argue with them. Now, does that necessarily mean that everybody is who says they are? No, of course not. There's always going to be people who try and do something to get an extra edge, even if it is against the rules. I think we've learned that with a lot of professional sports. And we've learned that a lot of us, I think, in our careers as well, in the professional world, that there's always people who bend in or break the rules to try and get ahead, to try and, benefit themselves. So just because something is frowned upon or against the rules doesn't necessarily mean no one's doing it. But I do think for the people who are passionate about it, it's actually a much smaller amount than the internet would have you believe. So that's kind of my stance on, I don't know if it even made sense, but that's my stance on it. The other thing I want to say is, why not believe, that these people are natural, who have, in my opinion, attainable, very hard to attain, but still attainable physiques? Because by believing that they're natural, for those of you who want to see what you can achieve naturally, it now raises the bar for what's possible for you to achieve. By believing that they're not natural, it lowers the bar for what's possible for you to achieve. So it almost, you kind of, for those of you interested in the sport, like myself, it only hurts you to think that these people are lying, especially, guys like Kiyoshi Moody, who've been doing it for longer than most of us, or even Doug Miller. I mean, he's got about 5 years, I think. I mean, guy looks awesome. But for these people who've been doing it for as long or longer, or who've been as more and more committed, why not believe that they are natural? Take their word for it, and then look at it as like, well, here's something that I can still achieve. So that's, I guess, the other aspect to it. And finally, one more thing I wanted to talk about is, I don't understand why being lean seems to be something that people think is a sign of steroid use, as if a lower calorie diet and a high level of exercise means you take steroids. For whatever reason, so many people that I meet think that if you're 170 pounds and shredded, you're probably taking steroids. But if you're 280 pounds, bench pressing 600 pounds, and squatting 800 pounds, but you're a little bit chunky, that you're probably not on anything. You're just a big guy. I'm like, the dude's freaky strong and he's a monster. But you think, the kind of skinny guy who's shredded, he's questionable. But the monster over there is not questionable. He's just big. And not saying anyone, necessarily would be. I haven't met anybody that big who's been natural. But point is, steroids are primarily for building. That's the biggest thing that they're going to help out with, is getting bigger. Getting low body fats is something we can all do. We can all do it pretty easily. Losing body fat, I remember when I was a trainer, I would always try and tell my clients, I'm like, losing body fat's the easy part. If you want to come in here and get lean, that's a lot easier than building muscle. Those are the people that are a challenge, the people who want to build muscle. Because, if you can put on 5 pounds of muscle in a year, that's a pretty good progress. But, heck, I've had clients who've lost 50, 60 pounds in 7 or 8 months. And this is while still living their normal life, working in the corporate world, traveling to the city, every day for work, to and from the city rather, every day for work, having a family, going to their kids' sporting events and whatnot, going out to eat with the family, and just the little changes, managing to lose these huge amounts of weight. So in terms of what's possible, in terms of, what our bodies can do more easily, dropping body fat's the easy part. So I don't understand why that's something that people always associate with drug use. But basically, in my opinion, when you see the super shredded dude, don't assume because he's shredded that he's on drugs. And don't assume anyone's on drugs, really. But definitely don't use that as a qualification, like, oh, you can't get that lean without. Because, again, in my opinion, that's kind of a self-limiting thing. I remember forever I always thought, like, oh, you can't get that lean without drugs. Until I finally decided to quit telling myself I couldn't and see what I could do. And when I finally decided to just see what I could do, I got leaner in 6 weeks than I ever had on a 12-week diet. And I wasn't even trying to diet for competition. I just wanted to see what I could do. And so I was actually probably eating a little bit more, but a better balance and working a lot harder. And just, I think part of it was just a confidence in myself, or not having the lack of confidence in myself, just not thinking about it, just seeing what happened. And once I saw that, once I saw myself achieve something, a new level of definition, and still managed to maintain strength while I did it, I realized, like, well, if I'm not getting pretty worn out at this level of body fat, that means that level of body fat that I thought was shredded before probably wasn't really that shredded. And that means now at this level of body fat, if I still have some energy, that means there's probably some to spare. So now here's the new, this used to be where I thought I had to be for a competition. Then I got to here, I still had energy, and I realized I could probably get down to here. But anyway, man, I'm rambling. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, once you stop telling yourself you can't, and you stop telling yourself people can't, or it's not possible, and you just go for it and you just try for it, you'd be pretty amazed at what you can do. And once you see yourself start achieving these things that you didn't think previously possible, you kind of reevaluate what is possible. And then the nice thing is, you start to give other people a little bit more credit for their achievements, and start to understand and recognize that there's a good chance that they're out there working hard too. You're not the only hard worker in the world, and that they've just had that level of confidence in their abilities for longer than you have. But anyway, long, drawn out. I don't even know if I made a point there. But I guess in short, my point is, just because someone's shredded or a little bit bigger than you or a little bit stronger than you doesn't mean they're on anything. Or just because they're winning competitions doesn't mean they're on anything. So instead of going to that like bitter, resentful, hateful, whatever negative place in ourselves, go ahead and we'll give people props for their accomplishments. Let them accept their rewards and reap the benefits. Whatever, and just use it as motivation for yourself. Of, well, if they did it, I can do it, and keep pushing harder yourself to see what you can do. And at the end of the day, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people out there who are probably doing some things that they're not talking about. But there's a lot of people out there who are telling you the truth when they're saying they're not doing anything too. So, just give people the benefit of the doubt. And I feel like overall, it puts you in a more positive headspace. And whether or not they're telling the truth, if you can just kind of have that more positive headspace, it's going to help you achieve better. So I don't know if any of that made sense, but this is like my 8th time trying to record something, and so far my shortest attempt, by the way. I've been rambling for like 20 to 30 minutes at a time and just going in a million different directions. So this is about the most concise that I've been so far, and I also notice my eyes are going in every direction. I think it's because I'm trying to follow my thoughts as they travel away from me. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and post this, and yeah. So that's it for today. This weekend, I'll probably go ahead, like I said, I'll post something about, kind of how I go about developing workouts and why I develop them the way that I do. And yeah, that's it. Have a great week.